Alrighty then, good afternoon there everybody. Silver Dragon here, coming at you with some Forsaken Fortress. However, this is not the continuation of my Let's Play for this. No, it is not. Oh well. This is actually, I kind of struggled for a bit to think of what exactly I wanted to call this here today. I kind of have the game just kind of running in the background here just to give me something to look at while I discuss this. Essentially, I wasn't sure if I wanted to call it a final review, as this is essentially the version we're going to be getting. There is a new version that has released for it that had some major bug fixes and such. But I think I'm essentially going to call this a final review. I could have gone with like rant or something, but I've already done that. I did that in the year in review a while back, so I'm not really going to go there as much. I'm mostly going to be discussing, what's going on with the game, what's happening, and how things are going to proceed from here, or if they're going to proceed. Let me start off by alt-tabbing out of here quickly, and essentially quoting, for the most part, what was sent to the remaining backers for the game. Just uploaded version 1.2, which have some major bug fixes. Sorry for the blah blah blah. As for the negative responses and doubts from all over the place, I think it is time to be a little more transparent. First of all, I am quite disappointed by it to see the outcome. It is definitely not what we expected when we first started the Kickstarter campaign. First thing I realized is that 121k is not nearly enough to make a open world base building game like this. We honestly didn't know how much we would need, because we have never done anything like this before. Because of that, artist Lin Lin, working on rewards now, and I, Hao Ran, are the only devs left on the project, besides some generous helpers such as our great forum manager, Orange. So basically, yes, we are pretty much bankrupted. We do have pre-reserved money for Kickstarter rewards, and the tiny income from PayPal will ensure that we get the rewards done no problem. But as for the project goes, the progress will be much slower than last year because we couldn't afford to hire any more people. So in conclusion, the disaster was caused by being too ambitious and too little planning and money. The project itself has many technical difficulties, especially the pathfinding. The game requires a large-scale 2 by 2 kilometer precise pathfinding with the ability to dynamically change the position of obstacles, base building, and generically generated items. This technology does not exist, at least in the Unity engine that we are using. So we end up combining different pathfinding techniques together to achieve what we needed. It is still problematic, but it is much better than no pathfinding in the field at all before Beta 1 version 2, I think. I admit that we miscalculated the budget we needed in the first place and underestimated the difficulty of the game, and combined with the absolutely high level of difficulty of the project is pretty much what brought us here. Bankrupted, and the game doesn't look as good as it should be. I am just trying to defend the people who have worked their asses off trying to get things right, but it doesn't end up well. The fact is that we still put in our best efforts. That's what is happening to the project: lack of resources, labor, and everything. Our own FF base. I actually like this part. This is probably the funniest part of everything he says here. Our own FF base is in critical condition of lacking food, companion, and surrounded by bandits. We jumped on the boat with so much passion and hard work, but maybe a lack of experience. After all, FF is our first project, and it seems to be a really good idea. I really appreciate your donation and participation. Without that, Forsaken Fortress is still on paper. So if you like the game, fantastic, and if not, you still have supported the first experiment of this kind. And if we did get a chance to make FF2, it would only be better based on all these experiences gained. Guys, that was the truth. Thanks again. You're welcome to express your thoughts as long as it's not racist and threatening. I will keep fixing what I can fix. So yeah, that's essentially it. So a year and a half into this now, since the Kickstarter ended, and well, actually probably almost close to 2 years now, I would say. I think it was like August, so we're a couple months off, but roughly a little over a year and a half, 2 years. And yeah, it's basically come to a crashing halt, as it were, for the entire production of the game. Now, I have a couple issues with that in that sense. Obviously, it really sucks that we all, invested in that and it crashed. It's just the way it happens. The games are expensive. That's just the way it is. There have been devs that spent, insane amounts of money making certain games. But it seemed like they had, even at the original Kickstarter, actually, let me pull that up here right now as reference for that. Forsaken Fortress, 121K they got with their over their 100 goal. Obviously, it could have gotten more than that, but still. So yeah, it seemed like, I don't know in that sense. I'm not a developer. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I'm not a dev. I have modded things in my time. I've made various mods, nothing too mind-blowingly ambitious. I've programmed stuff a little bit, but I haven't gone into any even remotely, scaled game creation in that sense. So I'm not necessarily one to judge all of what goes on in game development in that sense. But it seemed like, just from what they originally showed here on the Kickstarter, the vehicle animations were good, driving was in, shooting was looking good in that sense. It seemed like they had a lot of the animation, a lot of the placeholder art, all of that, all of that main hard stuff that you would want to get into a game like this. They had a lot of that done initially. It seemed like that's what they had to use to make this video. So it's like, what the hell happened? What could have, like, the pathfinding is a major technical problem. Yes, I can imagine that. I'm sure there would have been ways to cheat around that and fix it. Have basic, like, area pathfinding, and obviously if an enemy has to travel from across the map, maybe just have it so they only travel across the roads. Have like a hard-coded pathfinding down the road so that they would be, they would go into their base, they'd have pathfinding around their base, and then they would have a specific one track they would go all the way around the map if they had to. That would, be something that they could simplify for that sense. It wouldn't take... but then again, I've not messed with Unity at all. I don't know the difficulties of the Unity engine. I've messed with the Unreal Engine a little bit, but nothing too mind-blowing on that either. So with Unity, I have no experience in screwing around with that at all. I mean, obviously there was also the world map that would have been generated in, and all the towns and everything. But I Googled for a second and managed to find a toolkit to basically generate terrain with Unity. So it doesn't seem like generating terrain would be that difficult of a thing to do. It seems like something someone could almost do in a half an hour. Or half a day, not half an hour, if they had the skill and mindset to do it. I mean, the combat looked good when they originally had the demo for it here. The way you shot over the shoulder kind of thing really worked really well for that. Some of the squad commands and moving them around worked in that. Obviously, it was all placeholder, but it could have been tweaked a little bit to work. And a lot of the UI would have had to been worked over. But still, a lot of it doesn't seem like it would have taken that long and caused that many problems. So I'm really wondering about that. And a lot of the main issues of what they had with me in the course of what this game's development was there being, and kind of goes along the lines of what they released for this whole, announcement of theirs, where they were talking about, well, I guess we can be a little more transparent now about what's happening. They didn't communicate very well at all throughout this development. Maybe I'm just too spoiled. I've had some really communicative devs that I've even spoke to myself at times, with different indie games along these lines, and, they're a lot more active. They're active on their forums. They're responding to people. They're saying, yes, we realize that's a problem. We're working on fixes. We're, outputting these fixes, and actually describing, how development's going, what bugs they fixed out, stuff like that. It seems like they communicated incredibly little. Like they didn't even respond at all, almost, I think, to any of the beta feedback that we were giving them. I think they maybe read it once and then kind of looked away and went back to work or something, but that was it. And we got maybe like three releases since the initial Kickstarter ended a year and a half ago. And it wasn't all that, it seemed like they were jumping back and forth a lot, changing core systems around a lot. That might have been what, maybe they suffered from a little bit of Duke Nukem syndrome in that sense, They just kept changing, and they're like, oh, that doesn't work now, let's change it up this way, and rechanging, and, maybe that caused a wrench to be thrown in and delayed and otherwise, derailed development. God knows in that sense, because it did seem like, they had the animations down here. People were interacting with tables. They could have, just cheated this in sense, just kind of moved these placeholder NPCs, rotated them into position, and just had them do a certain, animation loop over and over again. Devs do that for certain, trailers and screenshots and stuff like that, but it just seemed like a lot of the content was already ready to go, ready to be in the game, so I'm not really sure what the heck happened for that in that sense. And an interesting thing was that, of course, one of the comments being posted on this whole news announcement were amounting to, one guy was like, well, could you guys be a little more transparent with, exactly what you did with the money? Where'd the money go? What did you have to spend it on during this development period? That would, at the very least, actually, I have that right here, right up top here, and the actual where the announcements was actually made. Let me go over to updates here, where we're at. Let's see. That would be this guy right here. 26 comments on it already now, so there's a bunch of new ones since then. But the guy was pretty much saying that, well, why don't you be a little open as well about exactly what the money was being spent on? That way, other developers who are doing similar games or who are doing games in, the near future in that sense, who may be getting something else kickstarted, would have an idea of exactly, what constraints there may be around spending that they may not be aware of, that they can prevent this kind of thing from happening themselves. I think that's an interesting idea. Obviously, you can't share everything. You can't just say, well, this is what we, this is our bills for the launches we had in the past year and a half. You can't be, and obviously there's certain things like the music artist, he may not want exactly, want people knowing exactly how much he asked for money-wise to do the music for the game and such. There's certain legalities when it comes to that, discussing money and where the money goes and so on and so forth, I'm sure. But still, something like that would be really welcome in that sense. From all the lack of any kind of feedback we've had from these devs, I would really like to hear stuff like that. What exactly went wrong? You've mentioned pathfinding. What kind of problems were you having in pathfinding? Go into details for that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is interesting. And, had they expressed these kind of concerns over time and really, tried to talk about the development with their community, I would have been a lot more personally, I've been raging on the game a bit for a while now for its lack of active and otherwise communicative development in that sense. Had they communicated properly in that sense, had good PR guy or something just go around and talk with people in that sense, not even one-to-one, just in general activity with the community, the backers, the people that paid the money to try and make this come true, then it would have been, a lot more forgiving on it, People would be hating on it less and so on and so forth in that sense. But at least when it comes to the hating on the game, and I can definitely say one thing at least, at least there were only 3,000 backers, at least there were only 3,535 backers. Now, had this released on Steam, kind of like how the Dead Linger did, where, it had just, again, moved its whole system over to Unity, and then they were completely, it just killed everything. All the old systems that were working so well, that were, made it a great zombie survival game, were just broken to hell. And they released this build onto Steam. They didn't give it to us testers, which, this is a big major change. You're going to want to give it to the dang testers that are already, testing the game to see if there's anything horribly wrong. And they released this entirely just broken build in that sense, and all hell broke loose over that. Had this game released on Steam at this, even at this point or before, I could imagine them getting flack of a level that is uncomparable to what they are possibly getting right now. That would just be, that would be horrible. That would be absolutely horrible in that sense. I think I even had some of the devs, or one of the devs, or someone involved in the whole thing actually come onto the channel and comment on one of the videos previously in which he was saying that, there was this update was coming out soon and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. So that was intriguing in and of itself. But yeah, it's really above all else, with this whole situation, with how this game is turning out in that sense, and how the developers are pretty much, they've lost all the, they got no money left. They're going to be maybe intermittently or developing it incredibly slowly over the next like couple years, probably, releasing updates probably quite infrequently, even more so than it already was. uh, I'm actually quite sad in that sense. The potential to this game with the original, with what we, everything we learned on here on the original Kickstarter, everything we saw, everything they were pretty much, almost promising the game to be, pulling a Peter Molyneux there, cough, cough, as I call it. Over promising, under delivering. He'll always be the king in my eyes. He'll always be the king. But anyway, I digress. I'm just really sad if this game does not eventually become what we were all hoping it would be. That's just such a terrible waste of good game. Oh man, I'm a gamer. I love games. I absolutely love games, and this is the kind of game that I love, almost not quite the most, but it's up there. It's like in my top 5 of all types of games. Is this kind of open world survival, base building kind of game, especially add zombies to it, and it would definitely be topping my number 1. That would essentially get it up there in that sense. But yeah, it would crush me, my poor gamer inner child, if this game were to just descend into the void of gaming. That would be unbelievable amounts of suck in that sense. I really do want to see this game succeed. I want to see it evolve. I want to see it eventually, be completed in that sense. I almost would wonder if no, they probably wouldn't actually even attempt to do this again in that sense. It's at the point where I don't think that if they did try and do another Kickstarter, I don't know if anyone would back it. It kind of reminds me of what's called Fortis Rex. It seems like they launch a new Kickstarter every couple months to try and add more features onto their game throughout development. Instead of going for one giant lump sum, which I think they did try, they basically broke it down and be like, okay, we'll just take 10K this time and do this, and then 20K this time and do that. It's like something along those lines is what they seem to be going for. Of course, I didn't back into that the second time. I was like, yeah, if you can't do it for what you originally promised or said you would, then that's just poor planning, my friend. But again, yeah, that's essentially what happened here. Is they were first time devs. They didn't really know what was gonna go with it, and again, that what was gonna happen with the amount of money that they got, and how they were gonna spend it, and how much it actually took to create something like this. And it was incredibly ambitious. Trying to create a big open world base building survival game with all this other insanity added to it. And actually, I guess there were zombies. There were those weird critters that kind of run around, but I haven't seen them in the last couple versions. I have not seen those zombie-esque kind of guys, which is a shame. But yeah, which again, though, as I was saying before, that is another reason why I really hope that they do be as at least transparent as they possibly can be with the money in that sense. The how much that they had to spend on certain things, how much did they have to spend on tools, what were, more specifically a lot of the difficulties they had, and so on and so forth. That way other devs can look at that. Hopefully it'll spread around in that sense, and they'll get a much better idea of what they could possibly expect if they're attempting something even remotely the same, which I've, said before. But anyway, and it kind of got to wondering as well, as all these guys here who were 1K and 2K and upwards up to the 3 guys who pledged the 5K there, where it's pretty much, they got 10 copies of the game, personal thank you, and they were invited to the Forsaken Fortress headquarters to spend a day with the team. Did they get to spend that day with the team? Now would they even bother to spend the day with the team? It's, those poor guys. I spent $35 on this, one way or another, that's a couple meals out the door in that sense. And even then, I still get a game that's probably worth at least that, Especially if they do come through with all these bug fixing and, fix all the major issues in this game. Sure, it may be poorly balanced in certain areas, but it's still a playable game now, which its previous versions weren't. It's previous versions ranged from just, well, actually, no, they were just mostly completely unplayable at times. They really were. And now it's at least functional. We can really, run around, have fun, kill things, build up our base, send people here. Obviously, there's not nearly as much of the content that could have been in the game, but, it's what we got right now. And it works. It works. So, yeah. Personally, I made my money's worth out of it. I don't know about the rest of them for that, but, so be it in that sense. But yeah, that's about all I got on this at that point, just kind of hoping for the future of this. Obviously, they're just gonna, I don't know if they're gonna completely drop the game at some point, like if they're just gonna do a couple of bug fixes, over the next couple months, and then just kind of shelve the game entirely. I don't know exactly what their plans are. For all I know, it could be exactly as they said. They're just going to do a couple bug fixes, and they're going to just keep developing it, just the two of them, slowly over time as they can. And, eventually the game will improve and maybe get to the point of what we hope it'll be. But they also mentioned, Forsaken Fortress 2, which almost seems like they want to eventually drop this and just try redoing it all over again. Which would be a shame in that sense, but yeah. And it was kind of makes me wonder too as well about some of the other devs for this, such as Mark Spain was the co-founder and programmer. Like, what happened to him, Mark Spina? Because if he was co-founding with the other guys, like all they have left is the graphic designer here, the texture artist, and of course the main product manager, gameplay designer, and programmer. So they literally have just an artist and one programmer left at this point. The character modeler, the digital painter, the various freelancers they had working on the sound design, 2D design, 3D artist, animator, so on and so forth. It's like, they're all gone. I don't know when they, left in that sense, but damn, it's just such a shame. Such a complete shame that it's deteriorated to that point. Man. What can you do though, eh? But yeah, from what I saw in the videos here, it seemed like they were quite far along with a lot of the programming stuff. So yeah, that's all I got. That's completely all I got now. I'm not going to keep repeating myself, which is a bad habit of mine in that sense. I tend to keep going over the same point multiple times. I do apologize for that. It's a terrible habit of mine. But yeah, in conclusion, I hope for the future of the game. I'm sad that it turned out the way it has for you guys. Good luck to the devs. Hopefully you guys can continue making the game and patching the game, and otherwise, finishing up the game over time. At this point, any additions to the game would be most welcome. I'll play it as is. I'll continue the LP series. I'll, build up this base. I'll conquer the world. I'll kill off all the guys. I'll go raiding with my dudes here, and generally see what happens with that. We'll make our fun out of it. We'll get our money's worth out of it. But yeah, I just hope that they be even more transparent. Tell us more about the process. Tell us more about the issues. Tell us what happened with the money and where it went, and maybe we can avoid this kind of thing in the future. Well, probably not, but might help. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have a great one. Silver Dragon out. And I will see you next time as I continue the Forsaken Fortress LP series, which will hopefully last at least a while. I do hope that a lot of the vehicles that actually had guns on it and a lot of that other content like that is actually still in the game. It would be a shame if it wasn't, but I'll have to look around and see what we find here eventually. Like, it's a pretty big map. We've only kind of gone a little bit over here. Whoops. Kind of zoomed out for a second there. There's still a lot of neutral camps here that may hold some really good loot for us, and quite a bit of a map to explore. So yeah, a lot for us to capture, a lot for us to destroy. So we'll see how it goes. Till next time, Silver Dragon out. Peace, everybody.